Good morning, gang. Well, good evening, gang. Joyce with Skipping Calves Farms here. Earlier today, I did some foliar spraying with my Invitec Italia fogger. And I had done a video to kind of document it, what the plants and everything look like. And evidently I got a text during that time or something, and whatever it was that happened, that video didn't work. So I'm going to try and do the same thing now. I'm going to start right here. This is my A-Bear peach. It is not looking well. It has really gone downhill really fast in the last week or two. I soaked it with some water, but it's losing most of its leaves now. I did fog it. I did fog it with a concentration of about 10:1, with the hopes of it being able to absorb some of that through the bark, perhaps, instead of just the few leaves that are on there. You can see there's some mummies, seeds left on the tree from earlier. There's a really bad infestation of some kind of caterpillar worm, and virtually all the fruit just rotted on the tree. That happened to most of my fruit trees this year. We were so wet in the spring, and then for the last 2 months we've been extremely dry, and in fact less than 2 weeks ago my electric fence went out because the ground got so dry that the grounding wasn't working. And now these trees I sprayed with a concentration of about 10:1. That's about the strongest that they recommend. So I did a holophos with, it was originally scheduled for 10 quarts. I did it with 12, and I did it with 40 ounces of concentrate, and I added in 1 part per thousand of WCA and 1 part per thousand of OHN. Those are both Korean natural farming amendments. The OHN I purchased from Chris Trump at BioMay. His family farm is macadamia nuts on Hawaii, and he's probably the most knowledgeable English-speaking expert in the U.S. for Master Cho's Korean natural farming method. And I can't speak highly enough of him and the service that they provided for me in terms of trying to figure out what I needed and getting it to me in a timely manner. So the tree we're looking at now is my wine sap apple. This is the first year I had decent apples on the wine sap. It tends to bloom a couple of weeks before the Macintosh, and it's the first time in a while that we did not have a cold snap that either got the blooms before they set or the fruit when it was real young. So I had fruit on the tree. It just didn't come to maturity very well. Most of the fruit was rotting and under heavy pest pressure before it was mature. I did get a chance to eat some of those apples for the first time, and they were really, really good. So I really am hopeful that I can take advantage of the nutrition information that's available to me through Chris Trump at BioMay and John Kempf at AEA, and see if we can't get some of the chemistry done. As you can see, the wine sap is semi-dwarf, but it's 25 foot tall, and that trunk is 9 inches in diameter. There's a little walnut tree growing up right next to it here. I'm gonna have to dig that up this winter. I want to wait until it goes dormant, and I'm hoping I can get that out without damaging either tree, but I'll have to do it kind of carefully. I did also do a little phosphorus on my comfreys. They kind of got the benefit by association, as did this little patch of much neglected asparagus. I planted that asparagus many years ago before I realized, before I got sick and realized that I was allergic to it and really shouldn't eat it. And now that tree has grown up around it, and it's not thriving like it should because it doesn't get the energy that it should. Here's my Jeep and trailer. Back a couple days ago, this past Saturday, I took the Jeep and took my sheep back to the farm where they came from. So they will be spending time with family and friends while I am on vacation. I also was able to spray these two hazelnut trees. The one by the street is maybe 6-7 foot tall. The one here that's closer to the semi is maybe a foot or two taller. They both do have some sprouts that are coming out now from the rootstock down below instead of just the main trunk. That was my fault. I had those wraparound tubes that you put around the trunk to protect it from deer and stuff. Well, I didn't monitor them closely after they'd been on there a year or two, and they got too tight, and that's when these sprouts came up. But I'm gonna try and turn that into a blessing. I'm gonna try and cut those off and perhaps get those rooted so I can have other hazelnut rootstock and then graft the nut stalk onto the top of it. Here you can see an area where they've grazed pretty severely. This area is an alley where they have been in. We also sprayed here in what I call my food forest and grape arbor. The muscadine grapes are what are the most native for this area. I've got green on this side and red on this side, and the muscadines really did pretty well this year. Until possum got a hold of them. And possum also got a hold of the thornless blackberries and my other seedless grapes. But you can see the density of the trunk, the thickness of the trunk for the muscadines. There's 3 good trunks coming off of that rootstock, and up here for the clumping grapes there's just 1. So there's quite a bit of difference in terms of growth given the challenging year that we had. This is my one Granny Smith. It's the first week in October. All the apples on all of these trees have been gone for almost a month. Granny Smiths don't normally even mature until September, October. And so everything came in early. Everything was kind of stressed. So this is Liberty apple, and we'll come back over here. This is a second Liberty apple, and you don't hear about those apples because they don't ship well. But these are pretty rust resistant for cedar rust. I did have some challenges with pest infestations, as you can see along the top of the leader on that. So I'm hoping, now that I know what my problems are and I do have some of the chemistry to start dealing with it, we can do a better job with the apples. And this is my Red Delicious. I grew up eating Red Delicious. It's also known as a hardy apple and kind of a universal pollinator. So these were all sprayed earlier today with a 10 to 12 to 1 Holophos OHN WCA foliar solution with my fogger, as was the vines over here on the grape arbor. I sprayed it from the outside in. I didn't go and spray it from underneath. I didn't have a respirator on and didn't want to risk inhaling that much liquid phosphorus. So here is my nectarine. The structure of that tree has never been optimal. Like the other peaches, it kind of succumbed to an infestation of caterpillars that went into the stone fruit, and then the fruits just rotted and mummified on the tree. Here is one of my 2 celestial chestnuts. These have been in the ground for a number of years. They started out just a couple of feet tall. This is the first year I'm getting nuts off of it. And so just in the last couple of days, those nuts have opened up. I'll have to find out later today when is a good time to harvest those. So that'll be interesting. I grew up in the South. I did not grow up in the Northeast, so I didn't grow up with chestnuts roasting on an open fire. But here's the second celestial chestnut. It did not go to fruit this year. It has always been a little bit behind its bigger brother. But it is looking a bit better this year than it has. And it's now standing, I guess, about 8 foot tall. And so all of these were sprayed with about a 10% phosphorus solution. And then I came over here, and I'm gonna, since I don't have a backpack on my back, I don't have to walk the long way. I can take the short way. And the backpack weighs about 25 pounds. You start adding water that weighs 8 plus pounds per gallon. So you're adding another 25 pounds to the weight on your back. I have to be pretty careful because I'm still in the final stages of recovery for knee replacement surgery. Don't want to take one false step and jeopardize that. So I've been pretty careful. This is Japanese sour orange. It's also called Japanese dragon. It's a Japanese dragon because if you can look in here, you can see, probably does not quite come through 3D on the camera like it does to your mind's eye. But those are very wicked, nasty thorns. If you just look at this area right here, no one's going to reach through and go through those bushes. They'd have to cut them down. You would not be able to walk through them. If you had a stand of these, they can actually be woven together like living sculptures like willow. And you can see the fruit. Sour oranges are small. They're about the size and shape of a key lime, although they're not the same on the inside, and they're not the same color on the outside. And they are full of seeds. They are just plumb full of seeds. There's more seeds than there is flesh inside that fruit. But it is extremely dense source of vitamin C. And so that was one of the first things I discovered when I first got to the property and thought, oh, let's see how this works. Seeds were rather expensive when I bought them. They'd probably be unattainable for me now. I did put a little bit of phosphorus on each one of these caged fodder willow cuttings. I've been trying to keep them going for the last several years. They've not really done anything. I am hoping this last dry spell didn't kill them all, and they just went dormant early. Sometimes with the willows it is hard to say. So I just went ahead and put the fogger on them, and even though it's not the right time of month for soil drench, just gave them a little bit of phosphorus while I was here. Phosphorus will go into the soil. Hopefully it'll stay chelated long enough to be available. And you can see a little bit here of some of the spotting on the grass leaves here. So we were getting some material out, some phosphorus out. So hopefully that'll help cut down a little bit on some of the broom's hedge and other bulrush type plants that came up after all the moisture that we had earlier in the spring, and then died way back when God just turned off the water spigot. This is the area where a couple months ago I came and brought the sheep and had them graze it really heavily, about 4 days. You can see how they ate all the vegetation between the grass, ate the grass down, but if you look over here, there's just a lot more vegetation in between the clumps of broom's hedge and fescue grass. So we'll see what happens with that. It's in late afternoon, so the birds are out foraging a little bit, and wondering what Mom is doing, talking to herself. She's not doing anything for us, but she's talking away. So there's a little bit here up closer, kind of looking at me going, what's going on? She's always fighting to keep her feathers on, because there's a bird that's on the bottom of the totem pole. She tends to get picked on a bit. But I'm so proud of how she has done well, and she gives me an egg every day or so. And she's just a sweetheart. Aren't you, little bit? Aren't you, little bit? You just a sweetheart. Yes, you are. That is Copper Top. We thought she was an Australorp. I think she's a gold, black copper Moran. She did not give dark eggs. But last year, the year before, one of her eggs was raised and we got Copper Top Junior. And she does give the chocolate eggs. And I find that the chocolate eggs are the thinnest in my flock. They're always the first ones to break. There's a little bit of a power struggle going on between Big Boy here and the young rooster over there. It's causing a little bit of turbulence in the flock. I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do about that, or if I'm going to be able to get that resolved before I go and leave on vacation for a little bit. So, you know what? They deal with it in the wild. They can deal with it here. And if it gets too bad, then we'll just deal with it. Big Boy's a good rooster. He's got a great temperament. He's not aggressive. He keeps a good eye out on the girls. So I'm reluctant to get rid of him until I absolutely have to. If I can keep 2 roosters and keep the flock happy, I would be willing to do that. Now, we are in the fodder willow orchard area where I came in and put down some 10-to-1 phosphate on these fodder willows. They were starting to show signs of stress because it's been about a week or so since we have had any rain. We are due to be cloudy for the next day or so, and we're supposed to be getting some rain. I may come back in tomorrow and just use a garden hose and a sprayer and just give them some more water. I'll have to pray about that and see what the Lord leads me to try and do on that. So he knows the end from the beginning much better than I do. Can't even hardly see this willow, but it's there, and it's been struggling to stay alive. And so, Lord willing, I'll be able to get enough nutrition into these soils over this winter while they're dormant, and Lord willing, we get enough moisture over the winter, which is kind of our rainy season, that they can build up some strength and energy and get their roots going pretty good. You can see here where the bulrushes have all died back, and it's creating this kind of thatch. Here's one of the willows that grew up and then died back, and now it's coming back out again down below. So I just want to give it a little bit more endurance and nutrition so that the plants can maybe, better deal with the stresses of this part of Tennessee having, we have what we affectionately call 5 winters. It'll be, see if I can remember them all, but there'll be redbud winter and blackberry winter, and I'm forgetting some. Dogwood winter, and there's another one that I'm forgetting. And basically you'll have warm spells intermixed with cool spells. And what's been happening over the last several years with these willows is they came from Maine and they were not acclimated to that kind of situation. And so they would start to come out, and then they wouldn't kill them, but it would freeze them to the point where they'd lose their leaves and they'd have to start over again. And so all of that energy that had been stored up in the roots got drained early in the season, just trying to keep alive and not really going forward. I was also able to put some phosphorus on the tomatoes and the rest of my garden. As you can see, my okra have basically lost all their leaves. About the only thing left are the seed pods, which is fine. That's appropriate for this time of year. And a couple of those seed pods are dry. On these bell peppers, there's 2 or 3 peppers that I'll be harvesting in the morning. There's a small watermelon that's not done anything for about a month. The peanuts have not really grown, but they've held their own for the last month, even though we haven't gotten much water. I've watered as I could. You can see here on the 75 willows, I cut those. They would sprout going over a fence here, guys. I should have done that first. I had cut all of the sprouts, the ground sprouts off in an attempt to encourage some more foliage growth at the top, and it looks like that may have worked a little bit. This is the north end, which gets the least consistent moisture, but it does look like the watering that I did a week or so ago is starting to bear some fruit. You can see this section here in the middle where the automatic waterer, which siphons the extra water off the tank, off the semi. Some of that tallest branch right there is about 10 foot tall. So, and that's just this one growing season. Everything was cut back in the spring, basically to about elbow height. The idea is to pollard them instead of coppicing them to the ground like basket growing willow growers will do, to use the mechanism, the mechanized harvesting techniques. Hannah Van Art, I think is how you pronounce her name. She's in the UK. She's from Brussels. She's got some great information if you're interested in doing any kind of basket weaving or growing of willows. So here's my 75 willows, and all in all, I'm fairly pleased with them. The pest pressure on them this year has been much less than in previous years. And then the other stand that I have, which is those are all Perea, which is principally a wattle and weaving and biochar, biomass use willows. The 25 willows over here, they've lost almost all their leaves here in the last week or two. Some of those branches are up 12, 14 foot high, and they get a little bit more consistent moisture because they get the moisture off now off of the dew dripping off and the rain dripping off of the roof over the camper. And I'm hopeful that things will work out well on the timing for the peanuts. They're still green. A couple of them look like they're starting to turn a little bit. I hope that doesn't happen while I'm gone. I'm not leaving immediately, so I'm hoping it'll either happen before I leave or not until after I get back. But you can see the peanuts over there that I planted in with my potatoes have done fairly well. When I did that, I did not know if you plant peanuts with potatoes, the potatoes will not bloom. I did not see that anywhere online, and a friend of mine here locally told me that later, that an old timer told her that. So and what I want to try and do is, once I take this garden down for the winter, I've got my black white plastic. I want to put some good chemistry down. I want to put some good cardboard down. I may not put a bunch of wood chips like I have in the past because there's just not enough nitrogen in the soil. The wood chips will tend to take the nitrogen out of the soil, and I don't really want to do that. So we'll see. My last little watermelon is like the size of a football. We'll see if anything comes of that. And this bell pepper, those look like they may be burn spots from the holophos. So I may go ahead and take those off. So you just keep trying and you keep working and you keep learning, and you gotta document. You gotta pay attention to what you're doing. Now these two peanuts were volunteers from last year. They just grew up. They were ignored. They just grew up. They didn't really thrive like the ones that I planted, but they didn't have the care that the ones I planted. These were my Amish paste tomatoes that I raised from seeds, and I didn't think they were going to make it, so I bought some from the local Mennonites, and the local Mennonite plants did absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. So this is what we got going, and with that, gang, I will wish you blessings for the day, and whatever you do, just keep chasing the dream. I'm going to go around the corner and see if we can't get some more fogging done. So have a great day.